Hey there, everybody. Welcome to the Super Combo Podcast, where we talk about anything and everything related to the Dragon Ball trading card game. With me today, I have Eggman.
Hello.
How you doing, Eggman?
I'm doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm all right. Coming back from a long weekend of celebration events.
Sure, sure. And coming back from a long weekday of covering said celebration event.
Yeah, I can't imagine getting all those deck lists and finding out all those videos. Must have been any easy.
Yeah, it was pretty okay, but the oddball ones were not as automatic to put in. So had to look at the cards for to make sure I got the right ones for sure.
Yeah. So, just to let our listeners know, today we'll mostly be talking about the Montreal Celebration event that happened this weekend of March 2nd and 3rd. And based off that, we're going to do a quick meta analysis and the things that we might be seeing as trends going into set 6.
Yeah.
Then we'll be doing our deck of the week and closing out after that. So, Montreal celebrations. I actually got to go to the Montreal celebration event this
Hmm.
weekend. Being from the Ottawa region of Canada, it's a quick 2 hour drive, which is
Yeah.
really convenient.
Yeah.
And
It's like the United States. You're either East Coast, West Coast, or what Saskatoon. So
yeah, it's really one or the other. It's pretty much extremes.
yeah,
Um,
Saskatoon is like the parody of Kansas, right? It's just nothing. So
yeah. Um, on that note, though, I hope that they start getting more events over towards the west, just
definitely.
because, like, especially in Canada, last year there were two regionals in Toronto, one regional in Montreal,
Mhm.
and nothing in like Vancouver or
Sure.
Alberta or anything out there.
Vancouver's pretty. It's pretty sizable. Like, uh, it, I don't know if the people know. I'm actually Canadian. I just happen to be bumming around in Kansas right now. But yeah, there's definitely like a lot of people in Vancouver, and I bet there's a lot of interest, but it just hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, it's probably has to do with resources or stores or whatnot,
Sure.
but
Sure.
I hope they get out there.
Yeah.
The event Saturday was the team event, and then Sunday was the singles event. And
Hmm.
team events was well, my team went 2-3, which oddly enough was still good enough to finish 11th.
Okay.
So not terrible.
Yeah, and what
Um,
top 32 got stuff, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So still made it in there somehow,
Yeah.
but
How many teams were there?
not that many to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
40 ish.
Dang, I'd hate to be the last eight.
Yeah, that's it's not great. But so the team event went okay. I went with my brother and a good friend of mine. I ended up playing Broly Lineage, but like kind of like a hybrid, half aggro, half lineage, so I could pivot.
Sure.
My brother played Soul Striker
Nice.
because that's all he ever plays.
Yeah, and
We
then
we tried to
Borgos is still around.
Yeah, so for the longest time, he kept saying, "Oh, I don't care about Borgos. I'll play around it." And then I think 90% of his opponents were playing blue,
Mm.
so he got to face Borgos every single game. And he's like, "I really hate that card."
Yeah, you figured it out real quick.
Yeah, no, we tried to get him to play Shenron or something like that, but he's like, "Nope, I have a deck. That's the deck I'm running."
Hmm.
And actually, it's funny enough. A lot of people have a lot of respect for off meta leaders because
Hmm.
throughout the whole event, everyone's like, "I respect you. I wish I was you."
Yeah, but I'm thankfully not you.
Yeah, but thankfully, I'm not sitting as you.
Yeah.
So he went 2-3. I went 4-1, and my other friend was playing the red Frieza with all
Mm.
the Frieza swap stuff, and
Yeah.
he went 3-2. So overall, not terrible. I think it's just it's getting lucky with your matchups is huge in the team event.
Sure.
Um, Anyone who got stuck with Broly was probably going to face 3 to 4 Shugeshes just because it's the smart thing to do in the format.
Hmm.
So that was a hard pressed matchup, but overall it was fun. I actually really enjoyed it. Everyone there was cool. Um, And then singles events, I ended up finishing 26th, just barely missing out of top cut with a record of 2 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw.
Mm-hmm.
And the that day I was running baby actually. I expected a lot of people to be running Broly,
Mm-hmm.
and Revenge Deathball is actually really good in that matchup.
Definitely. Yeah,
Mostly,
especially when they try to go all in. You just like, oh, I've got a one energy 25K thing, right? Like, feels really good.
it's really strong, and the fact that it can KO cards.
Mm-hmm.
If you like, if I have two
Well,
death
it's
balls,
not KO. It's sent to the
it's
drop area.
sent to the drop. But
Don't be crazy.
yeah, no, because that would make too much sense.
That would be broken.
But yeah, so it's just the ability to be able to after image and then being able to revenge death ball. No matter how much they combo, being able to pop the card is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
However, some tech I saw on some lists that topped this weekend was they ran the Dr. Mew to be able to search out for your babies.
Yeah, I saw two lists like that, and that was actually seemed pretty good.
That was really smart. At first, I told myself I didn't want to run any searches because it would slow me down too much. But at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, I realized the deck actually doesn't need to go that fast. You can
Mm-hmm.
really just spend lots of turns controlling the board and then being able to go into your beaters. So in
Mm-hmm.
hindsight, I really wish I did because then, like, I'll be sitting on a hand of two monkeys, one of the 5 drop, and maybe a 4 drop with nothing really much to do with them.
Mm-hmm.
So having 1 or 2 turns to be able to search those would have been really helpful. So
Yeah.
good tech for the deck going forward, I think personally.
Mm-hmm.
So top 16 has probably been the most controversial discussion I've ever been a part of in terms of Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
Lots of opinions going around, and for the uninitiated, that's because top 16 had a very interesting breakdown of leaders, some of which I've probably never seen competitive play before this event.
Definitely.
Eggman actually did a breakdown of this. So, Egg, what did the event look like?
So at the top there, like just for quantities, like okay, there's like four pans, that's fine. Three Hurugans, three babies, and then you're like, okay, only one Broly lineage, no Storm, and or no Shenron, and then you're like, oh, there's a Ribrianne and a Golden Frieza and a Dende Wish leader and a Chilled leader. Like, there's a Chilled leader. What does that even do? Like, it's just super interesting decks, and based on talking to people and seeing what it is, it's just a big combination of a bunch of things. One, it being a smaller event, uh, and not only just people who showed up, but just only 4 rounds into a top cut. It's just kind of a weird meta for that. And then also there's just like the regional differences. I think like when I saw like the European Open Championships, there were a lot of different decks that would be played in America, and I definitely would can kind of consider like, oh, different places play the game differently in that regard. And yeah, it just seems really crazy, and it's also the end of the format, so people are just trying crazy stuff right now. A lot of people have kind of moved to set six, myself included. I'm pretty much on board for set six stuff now, and so a lot of people are kind of have a lot of room to be more creative with it, in my opinion.
Right. And one thing to note is that the three spiciest decks were actually all teammates in the team event, and
Oh
they
yes,
they they took down the team event and just said, "We're just gonna throw a pile together, all of us, and see how far we can get."
yeah, because they have their invites for nationals now already, so there's no pressure to win, and yet here they are still top 16 or getting top 16. So shout outs to them. Android did an interview with the Chill player, and then probably by the time this episode goes up, I'll have my interview with the Golden Frieza and Ribrianne leaders. So
Mm,
not the leaders, the people who played the leaders.
right.
why is Eggman talking to cardboard again? I don't.
You just stare at it for so long. At some point, it talks back.
Yeah, exactly. It starts winking at you. You
Yeah.
get nervous.
So if we're gonna look at a breakdown of the top 16 real quick,
Mm-hmm.
we have Chilled, Ribrianne, and Golden Frieza.
Yeah.
Dende, which actually won the event.
Yes,
Danny
that
Hype
was
ran that
Danny.
deck.
Yep.
So that was a Dende deck based around mostly the Frieza engine. He runs a lot of one of Friezas that he can fetch back from the drop.
Yeah, it's pretty much like all the theory crafted sorbet decks before set 5 came out. They just did that with Dende.
Yeah, essentially. Then we have Broly, Vegeta, Baby, Pan, and Hrudegarn.
Yes, and we've got one of every color besides black, so that's really cool.
Yeah,
Meter wise,
the diversity's nice. The big representation of Pan though, so Pan took a quarter of the top 16. But when talking with a lot of the Montreal locals, supposedly a lot of them skew towards playing Pan.
yeah,
Uh,
that I heard the same thing. A lot of people just prefer Pan in that region, and that's kind of why I said like a regional difference.
right.
It's a real thing when if you compare like a lot of like even like East Coast West Coast players are Europe to Canada, and when we see there's a big South American championship in the next couple weeks, isn't there?
Yep, there is this weekend, I think so.
Ugh, great, more
More
coverage.
coverage.
Yeah, but yeah, I have no doubt we'll see something even crazier there. Because if you even look at, there's a big South American tournament before the United States Nationals, and everyone was playing like Shenron and Veggies, right? And then, which is vastly different than what actually finished and topped in America, which was just dirty Storm players.
Yeah, of course. And
Yeah.
that's just to say, the more of something you're going to see at a tournament, the more
Mhm.
likely it is to show up in the top position.
Yeah, and thinking back, it was the Mexico Championships right before the United States Nationals, and then now it's South American. That's the
Right. That's
division.
the difference.
Yeah, there's a separation there, but yeah, but if you look at the top four, so Danny placed first with Dende, and then Ryan Severin placed second with Rudigarn, and then the next two were just Pan players, Ricky Bond and Justin Chenier. I need to
Shani.
get in contact with him. I need to talk to him. If you know who Justin Chenier is, send him to
Yeah,
me.
Justin's actually a local from my shop.
Okay, you probably know. His deck list only has 48 cards.
Yeah, that was probably just a mistake in writing it out because
Sure.
he did play a Janemba player and he didn't lose to it. So I have to assume he had the right number of words, but I'll definitely touch base with him and see
Yeah, yeah.
what those two cards are.
I have no doubt he played with a 50 card deck. Like normally, if anything, people would add more cards than not. But I just right now they're just like two world martial arts tournaments in there just to fill the void. So
Yep, no,
be
I'll definitely touch base with him and ask him where. He actually sent me a deck list, so I'll send it your way
oh, perfect.
after
Okay,
this because yeah,
that's a
that
non-issue.
looked funky.
Yeah, and also I guess David Ty, if you know him, that would also be very helpful because he is. Not only can I not find him, but also they lost his deck list. So
Okay.
that is like double whammy.
Yeah,
But luckily or unluckily, he didn't place in top four, so it's not as important. But
it's not
I'd
as
still
bad. I'll the head judge is actually from my locals, so I'll touch base
okay,
with him and see if I can find any more information on it.
cool.
But yeah, so looking at this, even though, due to any number of reasons, this might not 100% reflect a true competitive meta moving forward, does this really give us the vibe? I get a vibe from looking at this that, even though we have some very clearly top defined decks, like you got the Broly,
Yeah,
arguably Hirudegarn, Vegeta Baby is very strongly positioned right now. It feels like if you're a good enough pilot, you can run just about anything and see moderate level success with it, if not
definitely.
just finishing the event. Is that to say just we're in a really good place in terms of the meta right now?
I think so. I think that's really true. And a lot of what's going on right now is it's not a question is can I counter something? It's more of how should I counter something, right? And so people who just know these, matchups that are pretty popular, like Pan, Huragarn, and Vegeta Baby, I think they get a lot from just knowing the matchups and knowing how to play around them. And so I have no doubt that's how Danny was able to win this event.
Right. And how much do you think the silver bullets have had an impact on that? Do you think, because now just about every archetype you can slot in one of these low cost black cards that effectively penalize the deck, but they can also be played around to a certain extent. should we keep moving forward with these type of silver bullets, or should we really try and just keep, our designs, the designs of the cards tight, so that we don't end up in these situations where we need silver bullets?
I'm kind of 50-50 on that right now. A lot of so even though it's only one energy, there are a lot of combo decks that can't really spare an energy to do something counteractive,
Mm-hmm.
and so I don't think they're really important for those decks. But definitely for kind of control decks, that can be something that's really apparent and can be oppressive. But right now, I think it's okay. I think side decks are small enough right now too that you can't really afford to run all of them, so you have to just kind of pick which one you really want to be able to counter and go from there. So just has a lot of uh, makes you choose what you put in your side deck. So it's not an auto build side deck right now.
Yeah, like I don't just take, here's three of every single black card, slap it in
Mm-hmm.
there, and okay, I can face up any deck.
Yeah, it's definitely not like that, and it's pretty much Cronoa because everyone's afraid of Broly, Shugesh, and then like Black Mass Saiyan are one of the Mechians. So
Right. Or, if your opponent's playing chilled, Black Messiaen's pretty good in that
yeah,
matchup too.
Black Mass Saiyan's really good in that matchup. For people who don't know, you do have to discard 2 cards every time you summon a token. So their leader pretty much can't attack, which sucks.
Yeah. Um, so is this going to change much going into set six? Are we expecting set six to really change the waters in terms of what decks are topping and what we're going to see in set six forward?
So normally I've been pretty hands off when it comes to new sets. Normally I just kind of say, oh, here's an archetype or two that I like, and then kind of just see what happens when it gets released. But and it might be because I'm going to Chicago in a couple weeks and I really want to get on the ball. But I feel like a lot of the set six, and I can be totally wrong, but I feel like it's going to be a really good balance. It almost feels like a core set, and what I mean like that is it's going to have a lot of cards that are going to have a lot of impact down. Like they're going to stay around for a while, but they're not necessarily broken. They're just cards that, like a lot of good staple cards, I think people are going to be running.
Mm-hmm. Right. That because that's the way I've been seeing the set. I mean, I see the Boo energy stuff that's happening, um, and all outside of like Broly for the most part. I haven't really focused much on the set.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's
I think
mostly.
there's a lot of the archetypes seem really powerful without having to be oppressive in my mind. I think there will be a lot of diversity, at least especially in the first event for set six. I expect it just to be a big crazy, like everyone trying to figure out what's the best deck. So
Right. Yeah, and that's the thing with set release. It's probably one of the most fun parts of being in a card game community because you're just seeing everyone try all their different spice and trying to see what works.
yeah, it's really fun to do the just event coverage of like the first event since the set. Like you'll see like so many different leaders, and you also just kind of get like a mindset of like what people were really afraid of, and then see if it panned out or not, and stuff like that. So
Hmm. Right. So I think we're still gonna see your typical. I think Broly is still gonna be really strong. I
yeah.
think Baby's gonna be up there.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest thing to take away from the Harudegarn hand control deck, I think, is just how splashable the Demigra package is, and you can really just put that in anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if anything, that just talks about the power of being able to get that big overarm body on the
Mm-hmm.
board, being able to remove something.
Yeah, and then just get a lot of value from that.
Right. Moving forward, I expect, like I said, Broly. I think everyone's pretty hyped up for Broly.
Yeah,
I think the Frieza is going to do things. Um,
I think it's gonna slowly creep up as the sets get released. I think it's. I mean, it's something like that keeps getting better when there's more cards in the like generic cards coming out. So I think it's probably playable, but I don't think it's going to be great until probably a set or two later.
yeah, like we've started seeing. I think this started happening after maybe set three or four. How battle cards are starting to become more linear. They're not as generic. We're starting to see things like Gogeta can only evolve on top of a specific six drop,
Yeah, which I
and
think is good.
yeah, I think that linearity means that things are less likely to get broken.
Hmm.
But in terms of extra cards, we've been seeing them get a lot stronger.
Sure,
So we
sure.
go from Whis' Coercion, which untaps one, to Dimension Magic, which takes a life and untaps two. as an
Yeah.
alternative cost, which I think is huge. Uh,
We've got is that all you got? Is that the name of it?
yeah, it's so is that all you got? Which discard a card and two of your
Yeah.
opponent's battle cards get minus 15k for the duration of the turn. I think
Yeah.
that's
So you can
huge.
use one energy in one of your cards to potentially blow up two of your opponent's card, which is really good economy if it works out.
Yeah. So I think if we follow the progression of how much better extra cards are getting, I think, like you said, it's one of those decks that as more sets come out, it's
Mm-hmm.
just going to be able to be more and more of a viable strategy moving forward.
Yeah, it's kind of like like the original Vegito. It's something always on my radar because they're not never going to choose to make Goku and Vegeta cards, right? They're always going to make Gokus and Vegetas, and so like this set's a good example too because they have the Goku that summons a Vegeta for free, or it's actually for -1 because you untap something when you play him, and so immediately like, oh, okay, now I got to go back to look at all these Vegito cards and go from there.
Yep, all the time. Every single time there are good. Like, I check out a set, I'm like, okay, here's the Gokus and the Vegetas. Does this break Vegito yet?
Yeah,
Be-
exactly.
and
I've
it's
got that first box had the SCR, and so I've been wanting to play it ever since, but not a lot of time to play that yet.
yeah, and especially if they're yellow.
Yes.
So for those listeners who don't know, Vegito is a red. The red Vegito is a leader that makes your Gokus and Vegetas in all areas green, blue, and red, which
Hmm.
means that if you charge up a yellow Goku or Vegeta, you're effectively running a four-color deck.
Yeah, which is very cool. I've already made a couple decks messing around with that. It's pretty viable now. There's enough yellow Gokus, so
Yeah, so you can effectively have perfect energy, and in theory, that means you can kind of have like the perfect mid-range deck because you can
hmm
just run the best things of every color.
yeah,
However, unfortunately, the game skews so much into engines that it's kind
mhm.
of hard to make just pure mid-range really effective.
Sure, I agree.
Yeah. So actually, this pivots really well into our deck of the week. So today's deck of the week will be one of the decks from the celebration events, and it's going to be the Golden Frieza. So for those listeners on YouTube, I'll put up a screenshot on the page, and for those of us audio, I'll have it in the show notes. But effectively, what this deck does is it leans on Golden Frieza's ability to put a card into the drop that's a Frieza's army, if I'm
Hmm.
not mistaken, and then you're able to draw a card and untap two energy
On the awakened side,
on the awakened side. Yeah,
on the unawakened side, you only untap one energy, but that's still like super good.
yeah. In terms of card economy, it's great to be able to recycle cards and then be able to get value out of them. And
Hmm.
so this is at the end of the day, it really is just a mid-range deck. You're using a number of cards that are just effective as in terms of removal, in terms of a dual attacker. So, but even then, even within this, what is effectively a green yellow mid range package, you have an engine where, see the person,
Kenneth,
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 yes, Kenneth,
Whiteley.
where Kenneth is using Dimension Support Trunks to be able to pull out skillless Frieza's army cards so that he can then proc off Frieza's ability. So he's using the vanilla Apools and Sui cards,
Yeah,
which he can fetch with him, put it in, and then gain some card economy and gain some energy.
yeah, yeah. So you play the dimension support for one. You get the Apule. He's a 15k crit. You swing with him, and then you use Freeze's effect to draw one, and then untap two energy. So you got a free energy, and you -0 cards. So that's always pretty good.
Yeah. So this leader's I like this leader a lot, just
Hmm.
because being able to constantly recycle your cards for more energy and card draw is something that every good leader should be able to do,
Uh huh.
and he does it exceptionally well. Uh, Frieza is one of well, it's by far the most famous villain, so he's always gonna get support.
Definitely.
And we have a guy at my locals who's always trying to make it work, and it just seems like it's just on the cusp of being there.
Yeah,
Uh,
I agree. I have a guy at my locals too. Shout outs to Dom who loves Frieza, and he's played a very similar version of this before, so it was very familiar to me.
Yeah, me too. Like copies I've seen ran like Anilaza and Piccolo's for removal.
And
Uh,
here's the fancy thing is there are no negates in this entire deck too. I don't know if you
yeah, that one was very shocking to me. He's just
yeah
like, I'm just gonna go all out, and my opponent's gonna have to stop me.
yeah, and that's fair, and especially since um yeah, you this leader wants to awaken as soon as possible because there is no advantage gained from there's very little advantage from the unawakened side. It's just terrible. You don't get you just pretty much get to the blow up effect. I'd much rather be awakened 9 times out of 10. So
Yeah, yeah. And that whole mentality of I'm just gonna go with my strategy and hopefully you know what I'm doing or you're capable of stopping it on the fly is basically what really makes the whole idea of bringing a rogue deck to a tournament. And
yeah.
is actually probably why, even though the Golden Frieza, Chilled, or Ribrianne aren't optimized lists, and even the creators of the decks themselves told them, in general, they're bad lists. Don't take these to a tournament.
hmm
The surprise factor and being able to just push your strategy when your opponent doesn't know is really viable in my opinion. So even
hmm
though you're not taking a meta leader or a meta deck, if no one knows what you're doing, you can just sweep up games.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. And I think that's pretty much what's going to happen in not Orlando, but the next event with Set Six. A lot of people won't know what's happening, and a lot of people will just be flying by the seat of their pants.
Yep. I actually touched base on this in last week's episode, but it seems more and more. I listen to interviews of players as after they went to an event, and they're like, I didn't even know what the cards from Clash of Fates did. I didn't even look at the set, and
hmm
they still do well, and that
Yeah,
completely blows my mind because I'm like, if you ended up in a matchup where like someone put down a Krillin, like you were probably gonna lose because you had no idea what he was about to do with it, and you didn't know you
sure.
were about to get your card blown up.
Yeah, and there are a lot of cards like that for Set Six. Like example, what Bojack's Merciless Farewell, right? Like you don't know that card exists. They're like, oh, they have one energy open. Oh, they don't counter. Let's go in. Oh, I lost because they had 3 cards in their hand. Whoops.
Yeah, no, that's like isn't that just it's another Shugesh basically, a Shugesh explosive. Like it
Yeah,
pops a
you,
card in
you
rest
pay
mode.
1 energy, discard 2 cards, and you blow up something in rest.
That's so good.
That's active battle, not active main. I thought it was active main. I'm like, man, this card sucks. And then, oh, this card's really good.
So good. And I think it's going to be one of those things where it's going to take a bit for people to adapt to the new cards. Like
Mhm.
Preemptive Strike is an amazing card that people talked about, but no
Yeah.
one's really playing. And that might just be to the fact that green still isn't seeing a whole ton of play right now.
Yeah, 2 green, 2 card, or 2 energy extra cards usually don't work right now, and
Yeah.
like unless besides Child's Wish, and that's an exception just because you can play it for free sometimes, but generally, and I guess Mafuba's the other card, but blue just generates so much extra energy. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. One last thing to touch base on this deck is that it runs. I've seen a lot more decks run Surprise Attack Frieza. And
I love that card.
yeah, that card seemed really unassuming to me at first.
hmm
But I saw actually, so my teammate who was on the Frieza swap decided to play it himself,
hmm
and I saw actually a number of other. So Danny Hype also played it. He played, I think, one main board and a
I
couple
think
of
it
the
was in the
sideboard.
side. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it was. Yeah, because you could get it with what Revival of the Emperor.
Yep. Yep. And it actually puts a lot of pressure. So it's in the same range as Haru Haru, where it just turns out that having the ability of a free 15k critical can actually put real amount of pressure.
Definitely.
Be-
And it gets a lot of stuff because it's Frieza's army. So if you play it for free, then you just essentially sensu bean, right? Like you're feeling really good if you're able to play it for free and then blow it up, and now you have more energy than you thought you'd have.
yeah, and it works around basically your opponent trying to calculate the you know how much combat they can actually defend against.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes, actually, this happened a couple of times in the tournament, in the team event celebrations, where my opponent told me go, and he's actually at like one life, but he thinks he can stave off one
Mm-hmm.
attack because he aggroed me early and I only have three energy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, little did he know, I haru haru'd into a burst attack Gohan.
Dang, that's dirty.
Yes. And it's that type of thing where just because it's so good on energy economy that your
Mm-hmm.
opponent can't actually play around it.
Yeah, and if you look at a lot of the degenerate strategies, a lot of it has to do with abusing energy, and so that's still powerful today, even though they're more restrictive and not as common. It's still a really good thing in this game.
Yep, like in Magic the Gathering, almost always, if something breaks the format, it's because it breaks mana economy in some way or form.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely, and I think that's just the nature of resource based games.
Mm.
So
And that's pretty much it for today's episode. It was a short one this week. We'll be sure to pad the episode a little bit more. Next week, I'll be looking to trying and getting Danny Hype on here for an interview to look his experience during the celebrations event and how he thinks the meta and the game will be moving forward into
mm-hmm.
set
I
six.
think he's going to Orlando as well, right?
He is going to Orlando. So that
Yeah.
is why we couldn't get him this week. He's currently traveling to go over there.
Okay.
So we wish him luck. Bring it back for Canada.
Yes. Be the 2-time winners, so we got the podcast exclusive, right?
Yeah, let's do that. Will you be going into any celebration events throughout the month?
I'm going to Chicago at like the 23rd, 24th. So
Okay.
not until set 6 more or less figured out.
Right. Right. And so set six is not available for this
Yes,
weekend.
that's a really good thing to bring up. Yeah, they Bandai was like for a couple days like, yeah, I mean we had some pre-release events, so why shouldn't it be? And then everyone's like, no, that's a bad idea, and they listened. So which I really do like about Bandai. They compared to other card game companies, I feel like they really do listen.
Yeah, if the community is loud enough about the things that it thinks it's not okay,
Mm-hmm.
Bandai responds, and generally they're pretty good about it. So I
Yeah,
do appreciate that about them.
yeah, definitely. So
All right. And to our listeners, if you have any questions, feel free to tweet it at me at Espira TV with the hashtag SuperCombo Mailbox, and me and my host will be sure to answer your questions on air.
definitely.
All right. And Eggman, where can our listeners reach you?
Oh man, I'm so bad at plugging myself. I'm the Eggman on YouTube. That's with 1G because I'm obnoxious. And then Twitter. I'm looking it up right now because I have bad handles. Twitter, it's the Eggman with 1G, but there's an underscore between the and Eggman. And then I also have a Twitch that I've actually been using this past couple of weeks, and it's the Eggman without the space because I'm still obnoxious. So it looks like the G-Man. There we go. And those will probably be in the description too, which made all this rambling useless, but there we go.
Yep. So, like Eggman said, all the links will be in the descriptions and in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
So, that'll be it for today. Thank you all for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Bye.
Ciao.